Hello my wonderful fellow Australians, 27 million Australians and the world's people. My brilliant book, Political Persecution of Women and Children, 556 pages. I'm making this video today because I've been analysing some of my public speeches, and I want to say that, you know, my campaign for the 2025 federal election is to Australians to vote for the Governor-General job and for, you know, to promote my brilliant book. But, you know, the Governor-General's job is something we, the people, need to have big time. And this is, you know, for several years now I've said that I should be the rightful Governor-General of Australia under God Almighty. You know, like my hat, Make Australia Great Again. I've got so many hats. And my wonderful t-shirt here, there is power in the name of Jesus. And, you know, the rightful leaders of a country is very important to promote. And this is why Australia has so many problems. We have so many problems. Because the people who are the rightful leaders of Australia are not actually in power. And I've proved that time and time again with elections being rigged and, you know, all sorts of problems going on. And this is why. Because if this had happened, if I was, say, for example, the Governor-General of Australia 10 years ago to now, there would be so many public problems and abuses that would just not have happened. And this is why it's important for the right leaders to be in power. Now, I just wanted to make this video because I've been looking at some of my speeches, and I think just if I had a million followers, then I would be the Governor-General of Australia now, and I'm going to keep going on that, even if I am murdered for my political position, because that's what you do. You have to do what you think by what is morally right, and that's what morally excellent teachers do. And I've been a teacher for 30 years. I have excellent morals. I'm highly educated and intelligent. I have a Master of Education in specialising in leadership management. I should be in a doctorate program, which I'm applying for, but this book alone should give me a doctorate. And a lot of the problems in Australia is because the wrong people in power. I have no problem saying Labor politicians have rigged elections, federal and state, no problem. The toxicity and the criminality of their position politically is just totally criminal. And I think I have proved that time and time again, and I have proved that in my book, I've proved that in my speeches, I have proved that time and time again. I just want to talk in this video mostly about what I would do if I was Australia's Governor-General, okay? And is it right for the people to vote for that position? It should be the rights of the Australian people, 27 million people in Australia, to vote for that job. So, let me just tell you what I would do if I was in that job, which is incredibly important because the current one they have, the Labor, you know, rubber stamp, corrupt rubber stamp, is just not talking about the rights of the people whatsoever. I've been looking a little bit at her Facebook page, Sam Mostyn, Labor stooge. She talks about the Constitution, but she doesn't. She's got it completely wrong. And that the just, you know, talking about international rights, global stuff, not about the Australian people, not about the people born in the country and the history of the country and the abuses that have gone on by the political government people, which is always the problem. They're only 1% of the population, you know. They're only 1% of the population, and they just abuse the hell out of the public in so many violent, atrocious, disgusting ways. She has got no clue whatsoever. I've been looking at her Facebook page, a couple of her videos, a couple of her posts, and she just is completely clueless about the abuses and the violence and the killing of the Australian people that's been done under these politicians, you know, replacement democide, which I talked about in my book. Now, if I was the Governor-General of Australia, which under God Almighty and by the will of the people, the will of the people should be happening, this is what I would do. Okay, Sunday. Let's start with Sunday. I would have a church building built on the Governor-General's residence so the people of Australia can come to church with the Governor-General's people and staff, and have a preacher, have a team, a pastoral care team. And that pastoral care team look after the staff there, look after the people, and they can, people of the ACT, the Australian Capital Territory, and Canberra, and Australian people can come and go to church, God and Jesus, come to church and go to church on the residence of the Governor-General of Australia. Every Sunday, which means we probably have to build a pretty big church building, which is fine. It's fine, we'll do that. It's over 50 acres on that side, That current Governor-General, which they got Sam Mostyn from the Labor criminals who rigged the election, she doesn't talk anything about that. She doesn't talk about that. She's the devil worshipper. That's it. Enough said. So, pastoral care team to provide church services and Christian services. Sunday. Okay, Monday. I would go through all my mail. Email, public mail, written mail, postal mail, email with a team of staff and volunteers. The whole of Monday, I will just go through mail. I'm sure there'll be lots and lots of mail. Monday, go through mail. Okay, Tuesday, meet with the Federal Executive Council, which is Section 61 to 70 of the Constitution, the Governor-General in Council with the Federal Executive Council. Originally, under the 1900 Constitution, it's seven state ministers of state. The 7 ministers of state of the Federal Executive Council, which was increased in 1952, a 1952 law, which I wrote about in my book, which was increased to 30 Federal Executive Council. So the Governor-General in Council with the Federal Executive Council, and no Prime Minister in the Constitution, with the textbook that I proved. Here's the textbook. This textbook here, this was published in 1986, and this was produced by the government people at the time, and they said the position of Prime Minister is not in the Australian Constitution. So the Federal Executive Council with the Governor-General, which is called the Governor-General Council, it was changed in 1952 from 7 ministers of state to up to 30 politicians as the Federal Executive Council. So I would meet with them every week, and I would have that public list of the politicians of the federal parliament nominate to the Federal Executive Council, but voted on by the public. So then, therefore, the Governor-General with the Federal Executive Council, and then I'll open up nominations for all the politicians that were elected, and then say maybe we get 50 nominations from the politicians elected and up to 30 in the law, the federal 1952 law that says you can have up to 30. Open that up for public vote. So you might get 50 nominations, and then you number your boxes 1 to 50 for the Federal Executive Council, and you'll end up with 30 federal executive politicians. Okay? They work with the Governor-General and Council, and then the Governor-General works with those 30 politicians. They are the leaders of the country under Section 61 to 70 of the Australian Constitution. Read it for yourself, please. Please read it for yourself. There's no Prime Minister in there. It's not the way. It's been corrupted for 125 years. It's just wrong. So then what I would do then, Monday, all public correspondence, writing correspondence and email with the staff. Tuesday, I would meet with the Federal Executive Council. Every Tuesday, every week, every Tuesday, which would be, I would appoint up to 30 politicians with the public vote of the public. And then those 30 politicians Governor-General in Council, which is called under the Section 61 to 70 of the Australian Constitution, I would meet with them every Tuesday. So 30 politicians in the Federal Executive Council in the meeting with the Governor-General, it would be, say, 10 minutes each that each politician has to present. And 30 politicians, 10 minutes each is 5 hours. So every Tuesday I would meet with the Federal Executive Council 5 hours. So I'd go 9 to 12 p.m. and then have a break, and then, you know, maybe an hour for lunch, and then 2 hours after lunch, 1 to 3 p.m. And what I would do is, with the Federal Executive Council, is 30 politicians in the Federal Executive Council, which they call the Cabinet, which is, that word's not in the Constitution. I would say present for 10 minutes. That goes then 30 times, that's 5 hours. So each politician gets to present 10 minutes. They get to present for 10 minutes. And then they say 3 action points on their presentation. So 3 action points. And then it gets voted by the 30 members of the Federal Executive Council plus the Governor-General. And then who gets to action. So they get up to 3 action points. So they can present for 10 minutes and they get up to 3 action points. It could be 1 action point, 2 action point, 3 action point. And then who gets to action that? Who in the Federal Executive Council with the Governor-General. And then that last point is time frame. So 30 politicians in the Federal Executive Council get to present for 10 minutes each. And it's audio recorded. Sometimes it may be published. It may be made public. But it's because it's, you know, it's serious discussions issues. So, you know, we want to be able to freely discuss issues. They get to present for 10 minutes. They get to promote 3 action points. They get to promote who will action those action, because I'm a woman of action, you know. Who gets to action those action points for the population, for the public, and the time frame. Okay, so that would be every Tuesday, 5 hours. In fact, 3 hours from 9 to 12, then an hour lunch, and then 2 hours after that. 5 hours of solid action presentations from these political people, and they get to promote what action points on their issue, and then they get to say who actions that and the time frame. And then Wednesday I would present before the media, the Australian media, every week. Every Wednesday I would present from, you know, 9 to 1 o'clock, or a period of time where I would talk about what action points and what issues were discussed at the Federal Executive Council with the Governor-General, and then those action points would be, I would give those action points to the public through the media, and meet with them, and they would come to the media conference centre and they would present, and I would present that and tell the public. So that would be made public and televised. Because we need to action. We need to action things. We can't just have politicians who do nothing and make money, and, you know, that's just wrong. They need to prove what they're doing is actioning, you know, what they're working, and what they're doing to help the people in their electorate. Because there's many, many things they can do outside of these meetings that can actually be doing to actively help the population, to help the public, and that's what good leaders do, okay? And if they're not doing that, they shouldn't be in that job. They just shouldn't be in that job. So then that's Wednesday. Okay, that's a pretty full-on day, presenting to the media. But the Tuesday would be really full-on. You know, so Wednesday presenting to the media, and then communicating what has happened in the Tuesday meeting. Then Thursday I would probably devote to, you know, social media, broadcasts and time and interaction, active interaction with the public on social media, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and that's, you know, active active interaction with the public, so you can comment and, you know, give your views and all that sort of thing, which I promote. Free speech, absolutely, 100%, except I don't like getting abused on my own social media, and I don't know why that happens, because I'm such an excellent person with excellent morals, and I just don't deserve it. So that's why Australia's got so many problems, because why are you treating the person who can really help you, you know, why are you treating that person badly? I mean, it's just the evil that goes on and on and on. It's just, woof, it's just out there. Anyway, so you're not going to get anywhere. Trust me. It goes on and on and on. And all these political leaders, new parties, and some people trying to vote, promote the rights and freedoms of the people and all this, and they're just not getting anywhere because they're not promoting me. That's it. I don't know how else to say it, but the truth and the matter of the fact is that all this evil goes on in Australia because you just don't have the right leaders in place. Okay, so Friday then would be, you know, meetings with people, heads of departments, state departments, federal departments, military, federal police, you know, these under the Constitution Section 68, the Governor-General is in charge of the military. Under the Federal Police Act 1979, Sections 3A, the Governor-General appoints commissioners of police and the deputies of police commissioners, deputy commissioners of police. So the Governor-General is in charge of the federal police, which I will be using to, you know, if in that position, I'll be using to help the Australian people and support the Australian people and sort out any evil things going on in Australia and in the military, and using the military for that purpose as well, to help the Australian people and also protect the Australian people with self-defence. That's what the military is for, self-defence of any nation, whether it's Australia or any other nation. You defend your own nation, you defend the people of your own nation, and that's what you use the military and the federal police and the state police for, which is not being done by those other politicians, believe me, and that Governor-General. She's totally clueless about that. So, the Labor one that they've got. You know, Labor didn't win. They rigged it. It's rigged. Everyone I talked to, no one voted for Labor. No one will admit that they voted for Labor. Come on. It's rigged. 94 seats they said they got, and they said they got another 20 seats on the last federal election, the lower house, and it just didn't happen. No way. Mathematically, it doesn't show up. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't make sense. And it's just, look at the public comments and the social media comments and the public polling then in that case. It's just, they didn't win. They rigged it. And I've proven that time and time again. I proved it in my book. It's rigged under the law. You know, 1918 federal electoral law is, it's rigged for two parties. It's rigged under the law. If they're going to admit that under the law, what are they going to do outside of that anyway? Because they're going to rig it big time. So anyway, Friday, so that's what I would do, you know, meet with those critical people who would be providing justice and goodness for the Australian people, because the way the police are being used, like, you know, these current politicians and the GG, it's just evil. And the judges and the magistrates and everything. It's just totally criminal. They want to destroy us. They're waging a war against us for 200 years. You know, this is wrong. And I talk to people everywhere I go. Just the other day I was talking to people. They look like, you know, they look like the people that wouldn't be speaking out about too much. When I said I was just talking to them about it, I showed them my book and all this, and they said they didn't vote Labor. They didn't vote for them. And they look like they're law-abiding people, but they basically said that they were criminals as well. They were saying that no, they didn't vote for them, and they don't believe that people did vote for them, you know. And they said to me the same thing, that there were so many problems and so many issues, you know. Everybody's saying it, so, you know, it's the public. 99% The political and government people, they're 1% of the population. Let's be totally clear about that. They are 1% of the population, and the 99% are saying, we don't like them. We don't want them. We want them removed. We want them jailed. We want them, just get rid of them. And that is the 99%. Saying that. Saturday, when I become the Governor-General, if I was the Governor-General of Australia under God Almighty and by the will of the people, which should be happening, Saturday would be my favourite day. It would be an open day, picnic day, every Saturday at the Governor-General's residence. The Governor-General's residence, so it's over 50 acres. There's all this land and, big property and big pool at the back and all this sort of thing. The Australian people could come to the Governor-General's residence every Saturday with a picnic, open picnic day. They only have that open picnic day currently one day a year. But I would have that open picnic day every Saturday. So the people of Australia could come to the Governor-General's residence, bring their children, parents bring their children, families bring their children, and you could do, parents and children activities and music, art and sport and activities and, bush cooking and stuff like that and music and just all sorts. You could bring your camper vans, your camper trailers and your tents if you want to set up for the day just for a bit of shelter. But there have to be rules like, no drinking, no drugs, no violence, no protesting. Because I don't want a bunch of protesters showing up every Saturday. That's not on. That's not the time. You don't do that. But it would be parents and children, families, parents bringing their families and bring your, individuals and people on their own. Fine. Come to the Governor-General's residence every Saturday. Have a picnic, have a barbecue, have activities. We'll have activities, food available, and music and sport and art and sport equipment and some bush cooking and stuff like that. I love that sort of thing, camping and bush cooking and all this fishing and all that. Love that. So that's what Saturday would be, for people to come and enjoy the day, enjoy and have a good time and celebrate life and celebrate meaning in life and celebrate relationships. But if you're going to come to drink, take drugs, protest, you're not going to be welcome. That's not going to happen. Okay, so you'll be screened at the security and you don't come in and protest. You come in to celebrate life. That's what it'll be. So there will be strict rules about that, but it would be for celebrating life and purpose and all this sort of thing, and that's what it would be for. So I can imagine that people would want to come and protest and all sorts of things, but you can't do that. You just won't be able to do that. So, then Sunday would be for celebrating Jesus and celebrating, God and Jesus and the great nation that we have with all our resources and the people have to profit and benefit from those resources that we have, and that's just not happening, is it? That's not happening with all these foreign corporations and foreign banks and foreign this and that coming in and doing what they want and raping and stealing our resources and just evil. So that wouldn't be happening anymore. In fact, I'll create a legal name, the Australian people, legal name for these resources, mines and airports and, ports and all resources of Australia to be put in the legal name of the Australian people. So that, there might be some Australian companies that profit, sure, but then if it's not Australian, you just don't get to own the resources of our country. I mean, what other countries do that? Other nations protect their people and their resources, and we need to do the same. And how is it that people can come into our country and say, oh, we can buy these resources and own the Australian people's resources and profit and steal and rape our resources, which is just totally criminal, A lot of what's going on in this country is totally criminal, and it's the fault of the political and government people. It really is. There's only 27 million people in this country, but the people come in, and these corporations, they come in and they take our resources and all this, and they just rape and steal and profit. It is evil. Evil, evil. We've got thousands of people homeless in Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane and Adelaide and Perth. It's just evil, evil, evil. You can't do that to people and get away with it. You're going to burn in hell. I have no problem saying that. No problem. And Australia's in the Southeast Asian region. Okay, a lot of Asian people think that Australia belongs to Asians. Well, if you think that, you need to think about what you do under God Almighty to the people born in this country. Okay? God Almighty and Jesus Christ in the New Testament will judge all humans all over the world. Australia, America, Europe, Asia, Africa. You don't get to come into our country and say, we're going to control the resources of this country and steal and rape and pillage. The Aboriginal people have a complaint, a legitimate complaint, which I, can see. They were here first, before the British came in. My parents are Dutch. Okay, I'm a Dutch teacher. I'm an Australian-born teacher of Dutch descent. I'm not British. Let's be honest here. Let's be honest. The British, 1788, they came in here and they took over. They killed, they raped, they pillaged, they stole. But the fighting has been going back and forth, hasn't it? The British people killed the Aboriginals killed the British. It's been going back and forth. There are people that have come from Europe into this country to spread the gospel, to spread the teachings about Jesus and the love of Jesus and the love of God. There are many, many good things that have been brought with that, but there are some things that were brought not with that, but the political and government people that came in, and they came to steal, kill, and destroy like the devil. Do you know that Aboriginal people are only 3.2% of the Australian population now? They're only 3.2% of the Australian population. I wrote a bit about what has happened there in my book, my brilliant book. You can't go into people's nations and start killing and stealing and pillaging and raping and killing and stealing their resources. You can't do that. My parents are Dutch. The Dutch people, they said they called Australia at one point New Holland. They called that New Holland in the 1600s. If the Dutch had colonised Australia, would have had been the same result? I don't know. And many times I think, well, why did my parents stay in the Netherlands? Why didn't they stay in Europe? And we were born in Europe. But my 8 brothers and sisters and I, my parents are married for 53 years, had 9 children, and they were all born in Australia. Why didn't our parents stay in the Netherlands? Why didn't they stay in Europe? After the Second World War, people came from Australia. After the Second World War, they came because they wanted to build a new life, a new home, a new opportunity for their families. They had been ravaged by war. They'd been ravaged by the Second World War, up to 12 years of it, by the Nazis, and they were destroyed. They were destroyed. They wanted a new life, a new hope, a new beginning, a new opportunity. And that's why after the Second World War, the politicians of this country, under the British, they brought 3 million Europeans from Europe. They brought 3 million Europeans from Europe after the Second World War in the 1950s and 1960s. 3 million. And really, the people of Europe that came from Europe in the 1950s and 1960s, they built this country. They built all the buildings, they built everything that you have. But just building things does not necessarily mean that you're empowering the people. you know. So it's all about how you treat people. It's all about how you are with people. Do you love people? Do you have compassion for people? Do you have mercy for people? Do you show the love of Jesus for people? And unfortunately in Australia that just hasn't happened. But you know what? That's not the people from Europe. Their fault. Is the Asian people as well. The people from Asia that came in here, that's their fault too. You know, we are at the end of the earth. We're from the ends of the earth, you know. And really, look at the Europeans now. They're suffering. All their politicians are betraying their people. They're being inundated with foreigners. Muslims, for example, all Western nations are Muslim men who are dangerous. I don't have a problem saying that. Dangerous men. So, do you think they spread themselves a little bit thin? You know, the people, the Caucasian people of Europe. The people of Europe, the Caucasian people globally now, they're only 8% of the world's population. And we're being murdered now in Western countries. That's a fact. Under the psychiatric practice, under the COVID injection, under the euthanasia injection. It's the elderly people. The elderly people mostly are being murdered in big numbers from the pharmaceutical drugs. It's all the politicians' fault. The politicians. And the globalists. You know, the 1% rich are the globalists. They're in Africa, they're in Europe, they're in America, Asia, Australia. The 1% top rich are the globalists. You know, people say, oh, the Jews and the globalists and the Jews are the blame for everything. That's bullshit, you know, bullshit. Hitler killed millions of people. And the globalists, the top 1% rich, are all over the world. They're in Russia, they're in Asia, they're in America, they're in Europe, they're in Australia, they're in Africa. The top 1% rich are the killers of this world. The top 1% rich. Because the New Testament says the love of money is the source of all kinds of evil in this world. The love of money. So when you look at the top 1% rich, which I spoke about in my book, the top 1% rich, they are killing everybody. And they want to wipe out everybody. They don't care. They don't fucking care. They'll do it for power, control, money. And the political people are useless. They say, oh, we do what the bankers want. We do what the, they do what the, the rich want. But they are gutless and useless. They are cowards. Because you can just say no. You can just say no, you know. Don't think that the 1% rich are just a particular group. They aren't. They're all over the world. The 1% rich. And you got these modern documentaries and people say that it's the Jews, this and Jews. It's all bullshit. I don't even speak about that hardly ever publicly. And I've been bloody forced into it because people are trying to say Hitler's a good guy and all this sort of bullshit. It's just bullshit. But, you know, because the love of money is the source of all kinds of evil in this world. The political people and the government people, they money, power, control. And they're not good leaders. We don't have good leaders in this world. We don't have good leaders in Australia. We don't. You know, the people. Good leaders will empower the people. Like, look at my political website. Bill of Rights for the people. Economic rights for the people. You know, sociological rights for the people. Everything I've campaigned for is for the freedom and the rights of the people. And because I'm an excellent leader. And I'll do that. And I've said that. And I've said that for 10 years publicly. And I've proved that already. That, you know, I have suffered because of my political vision. And there's good people out there who support my work. Thank you very much. Very good people. But there's people out there who abuse me and assault me and all this. And they are just fucking evil. What else can I say? Look at Australia. Look what's happened. You don't have any power anymore because it's just been taken over. And if you're going to treat me like shit, you will never, ever, ever, ever get that back. You know why? Because the good people in this country are being murdered. They're being murdered under the psychiatric practice and the drugs, the COVID injections and the drugs, and the euthanasia injections and the drugs, and the way the politicians use the police and you know, and the way that they use all these political and government people. They're only 1% of the population, but they are terrorizing the public. They are terrorizing everybody, aren't they? And after all this terrorism towards the public, you're trying to tell me that somehow elections in Australia are legitimate and valid and legal and all this? It's bullshit. If they can kill people in Australia, the political and government people, they can easily rig elections. Easily. Because that's all part of their MO, isn't it? They can kill you with the judges and the police and the psychiatrists and the doctors, the GPs who drug people with the pharmaceutical drugs, and they shoot you. They fucking shoot people with the gun, and they kill people with the needle and the gun, and they do all this, and the so-called courts. It's just a person up the front, right? A judge or a magistrate, and they say, oh, you put you in prison for nothing. But you know, rapists and murderers, rapists have a 1.5% conviction rate. That's nothing. 98.5% of reported rape is they get freed. They get away with it. And these 1% of the population, the politicians and their paid workers, they're terrorizing everybody. They're terrorizing everybody. And how can we stand up for that? Because these are very dangerous people. They're fucking dangerous. They're dangerous. They got arms. They got weapons, tasers, guns. The military and the police, and they are using against us. And I'll tell you, the police and the military, there's only two types of police and military in Australia, you know. Two types of police and military in Australia. Number one, police and military who support my efforts to become the Governor-General of Australia. You are brilliant and excellent and fantastic. Well done. And then number two, the police who are not, and military, who are not in favour of me becoming the Governor-General of Australia. You are scumbags, murderers, rapists, thieves. You should resign and look for another job and pretty much jailed, because I will establish federal prisons for the political and government people who have harmed the 27 million people of Australia, many of whom are dead. They're killing 75,000 Australians every year under the psychiatric practice, and the politicians are doing it. 4.2 million Australians under this practice. Oh, they'll just kill you, you know. That's what they're like. They're very, very dangerous people. Very dangerous. Because Australia is the arse end of the earth, isn't it? It's the ends of the earth, like the New Testament says. At the ends of the earth. So, who's going to stop them? When you've got people brought here in the millions from other nations. I don't have a problem bringing millions of Christians here from all over the world. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with certain types of immigration. You know, Christian people being brought to Australia. I don't have a problem with that. But the people that they bring here, they don't care about us. They don't care about the people born here, do they? The people born here are being murdered in the thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands. And you'll work out pretty quickly with a bit of research evidence, which, you know, I've documented in my brilliant book, that a lot of the people working in the political government area, the government area, they're not born here. They're brought here. There's a lot of foreign people working in the government. Asians, Africans. And they are racist because they're killing us. You know, they say, oh, racism, but they've got these, you know, the race commissioner and all this. They're basically foreigners who the Labor politicians are putting in the power. I can print off their faces and names. And they're saying, oh, we're racist and all this bullshit. But they're fucking racist. Because they come from another country, and they come into this country because the politicians put them in those positions. Race commissioner, and they're killing our people. It's all conquering, you know. It's all conquering. So they're basically saying we're racist, but they are fucking racist. They come here and they say, you know, they say, oh, Australians are racist and Australians this and Australians that. We're born here. We are born in this country, but the people that they're putting in these jobs, in the race commissioners' jobs, and these foreigners in these jobs are killing our people. Those Labor politicians, Labor politicians mostly, but some of the Liberal politicians too, federal and state, are bringing foreigners in the government here, putting them in the government, in the police, in the psychiatric practice, doctors, whatever, lawyers, and they are killing the Australian people. That is a fact. And they've been doing that for 200 years. They've been doing that for 200 years. I'm a teacher. 30 years a teacher. I have a Master of Education. I wrote this big book. And I proved it. I proved it 100%. You go into Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane, and especially Melbourne and Sydney, and there are no white people. You sit on the tram and the train. Half the time you're the only white person on the tram and the train. The homeless people, they're all white, like the Aboriginals. They killed the Aboriginals, and they're killing the white people of Australia. And they've been doing it for a long time. You know, these traitors and treasonous criminals and treacherous criminals in our parliaments. Labor. And they're saying they're winning, and they're fucking lying. They're not winning. They said they've got 94 seats in the lower house federally. They said they got from 74 seats. Another 20 seats since the last federal election. They are fucking lying. And that AEC is all rigged. They got their Labor stooges, their Labor criminals in that bloody federal, that Australian Electoral Commission managers. And I wrote a whole lot of stuff about the commissioner of the Australian Electoral Commission here. Right? And they had an acting commissioner in the last federal election. In the literature, the AC literature. But the managers who are counting the votes, who are they? They're not named. Nameless, faceless Labor, you know, stooges, criminals. Who are they? You got federal election, you got federal government positions, state government positions named, you know, doctors or lawyers or people of state departments, federal departments are named. You know, some of them are named. But the Australian Electoral Commission managers who are counting the votes are not named. We don't even know who they are. And how can you say that you trust when they say they won 94 federal election seats in the lower house? And how can you say that they are correct? Well, we don't even know who they are. You can't say they're correct. They can say, pull numbers out of their asses. 94 seats or 74 seats or 64 seats or bloody 15 seats, and they can say, oh, Labor won this many seats and Liberal won this many seats, and they probably won fucking no seats. say they won these seats when they are not even named? The people counting the votes, the managers counting the votes, and the managers saying they're responsible for saying how many votes they got and who won the seat. That we don't even know who they are. You can't trust that. Who can trust that? That's like having a teacher, me as a teacher, for 30 years in a classroom, a high school or university, and saying, I'm not going to give my name, but believe everything I say. You know, that's just absurd and evil and criminal. Totally criminal. And, you know, Australia, from the history that I've studied as a teacher for 30 years, what's going on since 1788 in this country. The people come here and they're basically just fucking destroyed by these political government people because Australia is the arse end of the earth. Nobody cares. Nobody cares, but I have studied in depth, meticulously, as I published in my book, and I've written 4 other books as well, you know, and I've been a teacher for 30 years. I have studied what they've done in this country, what the political and government people have done, and how they get society and the church to go along with this. And as a Christian teacher, I'm just disgusted. You know, half the time I think my parents should have stayed in Europe with my Dutch relatives. But they'll destroy you here. I can't go back there and teach in Europe because they destroyed me. You know. It's totally evil. It's totally evil. What's the public going to do about it? What can we do about it? These people are evil and dangerous and criminal and violent and disgusting. And they're all going to burn in hell. That's the thing I love about Jesus. Is that, you know, they should be jailed. But they're going to burn in hell. Is it worth it for you? You know, any political and government people watching. Is it really worth it for you? They're going to burn in hell. You know, there's only 2 types of police and military in this country. The ones, number 1, who support me becoming the Governor General. And if you don't, you should resign. Because you're just a criminal. You really are. You know. Don't you want to be glorified and praised and exalted and praised for your good work for hunting down murderers and rapists and drug traffickers and drug dealers and violent people, which is what the police need to be used for. That's what the police need to be used for, and the military, and to defend the people of the nation. Don't you want to be praised for that? Or do you just want to be condemned for picking on the Australian people for fines and, you know, homeless people and picking on the vulnerable people and killing people with the psychiatric injections and drugs and all that, and the COVID injections and the euthanasia injections, and that's not the work of police. That's not the work of policing, and the magistrates and the judges going along with it. That's not the work of judges and magistrates. These are criminals doing this, harming the population. Come on. Use your common sense, use your intelligence, use your moral compass to work out that if you put me in that Governor General's residence, you're going to have justice and freedom and rights and prosperity. And I don't say that lightly. I say that with absolute full intentions of the economic vision that I've promoted and the moral vision that I've promoted and the goodwill provision that I've promoted. Just 27 million Australians. We don't have a very big population. Really. But we don't. But I think about what's going on in this country the last two centuries and, you know, more than that. And I just think, oh, goodness me. Goodness gracious me. But do you really want some chance to actually go to heaven and do good works? You know, the police under my political leadership will be valued and honoured and praised and used for the purpose that they've supposed to be used, which is not what they're currently being used for, to terrorise people. No. No. So, you know, all these political people out there, new parties and independents and all these other people, they should be voting me for 10 years already, because they've wasted 10 years of public time and money and effort, and, you know, just wasted. Because you're going to get a cashless society under them. You're going to get the mark of the beast, 666, on the right hand of the forehead. You're just going to get murdered by them, the current political people. And you're going to get all these evil things that the book of Revelation talks about. But we have an opportunity to stop it in Australia. You only have the opportunity for that with the right leaders. Anyway, that's it. It's getting worse and worse and worse and worse, because people out there, they'll follow all these other political people, but they don't have the answer. They don't. They never have had the answer. They haven't. They've wasted all this time, you know, and then it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse, because now they're at the point of transitioning children, gender ideology, and just not the psychiatric killing, but they've bloody put in the law to cut the breasts off for girls and then, you know, cut the penis off and all this. And it's just more and more evil, isn't it? Isn't it? How much evil can you put up with before you actually publicly promote the right political leaders for Australia? Seriously. I mean, the public is to blame. The media is to blame. The political and government people are to blame. And the society is to blame, because all this time, years and years and years, you've wasted all this time and you haven't actually promoted the right Governor General for Australia. What else can I say? What else can I say? You know? That's it.